again, everybody, and welcome in to the Shelby County High School Football Show. We're out here at Briarwood Christian School to get you geared up for another busy week of high school football action starting on Thursday night. We're actually going to have 3 games this Thursday night. Helena going to host Calera on Thursday. You've also got Briarwood traveling to Mountain Brook, our game of the week this Thursday night. And then beyond that, the Pelham Panthers on the road this Thursday as well. So 3 games Thursday night, then we've got a full slate on Friday as well. So another busy week ahead, and we've hit the homeward stretch. We've only got 3 weeks of region play left, and for teams like Briarwood and a couple others, Pelham as well, they've got bye weeks in the mix there, so they've only got 2 region games left this season. So we've hit a very important stretch of the season. A lot of games left that are going to determine what to expect from these teams, whether they're going to get home field advantage in the playoffs, whether they're going to win a region title, or whether they make the postseason at all. So a busy week this week. A lot of important games coming up the next 3 weeks as well. So we've got a lot to touch on. We've got some big games to talk about, not just our game of the week on Thursday night as Briarwood hits the road to take on Mountain Brook in a huge matchup there of undefeated region opponents, but beyond that, we've got some big, crucial matchups this week that could likely determine whether a team makes the postseason this year, whether they get home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. So some big games coming up. We're going to talk about all of those matchups on this week's Shelby County Football Show. And then we're also going to name our SCR Stars of the Week at the end of the show. So make sure you stay tuned in as we break down everything coming up for this week's big week of high school football. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch unfold, and there's going to be a lot of excitement, and that's going to include this game of the week between Briarwood and Mountain Brook. We're going to jump straight in. We're going to talk about that one first and get you ready to go. For the second year in a row, these two teams meet in a region rivalry showdown that could likely determine who wins the region championship here in this region between these two teams. And you look last year, Mountain Brook, they picked up a 17-7 win in this game, went on to win the region title last year, and a lot of similar situations going to be on the line again this Thursday night as these two teams meet in this big battle. And you look at this matchup, and 2 years ago, these two teams both separated by 2 classifications. Mountain Brook, formerly a 7A team, moved down to the 6A classification, and Briarwood, formerly a 5A team, has jumped up to the 6A classification. So a big matchup for these two. Last year, they met as region opponents for the first time, and it was an exciting battle, a defensive battle that we expected. Mountain Brook able to pull that off with a little bit more on the offensive side of the football. But this year, you go into this matchup, you've got Briarwood sitting at 7-0 so far and playing great in region games at 4-0 now in region play after last week's win against Shades Valley, 28-7. That was a game they fell behind 7-0 in, and then they scored 28 unanswered the rest of the way behind Christopher Vizina at the quarterback position and Ethan Anderson at the wide receiver position. Vizina went off yet again, had another 4-touchdown performance, 2 of those passing, 2 of those rushing. He had more than 250 yards passing and almost 100 yards on the ground. So a big night for him. Wasn't the best overall offensive performance. Started a little bit slow in that first quarter. Otherwise, they would have pulled away even further in that game. But the defense played one of their best games since early in the season. A big performance for them on that side of the ball, as after that first quarter touchdown, they clamped down. There was nothing there for Shades Valley the rest of the way, and Briarwood goes on to win that one 28-7. But now they get a Mountain Brook team just as talented, just as eager as they look to repeat as region champions this year. I thought it was funny, though, after the game last week, Briarwood head coach Matthew Forrester said he hasn't been able to say this team's name all year. As soon as they beat Shades Valley right there on the field, he started talking about this game and what it means. They know how important this game is, but they've been taking it 1 week at a time, waiting for the build-up to lead to this exact moment. They want the region championship this year, and in order to do so, it likely goes through this Mountain Brook team. So a big chance for them and a big opportunity this Thursday night. And I think for Briarwood, they feel like they have the edge on the offensive side of the football this year. That said, they could be without running back Luke Rebels. He went down with an arm injury after, I believe, just one carry last week against Shades Valley. Did not return in that football game. So whether he goes, that's going to be a key question. He is their leading running back, but at the end of the night, the way that Christopher Vezina is playing, I think he can carry enough of the load. You've got receivers stepping up like Ethan Anderson and Jay Butler to give this offense a little bit of an edge and an advantage. That said, yet again, just like every year for these two teams, they rely heavily on the defensive side of the football. And this Briarwood team, they're going to have a slight edge on the offensive side of the football, in my opinion, compared to what Mountain Brook will put out there on that side of the football. But I do think Mountain Brook will have an edge on the defensive side of the football. You look so far at what Mountain Brook's done, sitting at 5-1, 3-0 in region play, and their only loss to Thompson, the number one team in the state in the 7A classification, arguably the top team in the country this year as well. They lose that one 51-0, but that doesn't really say much. That's a Thompson team, like I said, that's one of the best in the country. You look beyond that against their other 6A and 7A opponents for Mountain Brook, the Spartans have given up 7 or less points in every game, and they've scored 31 or more in every game against those other opponents as well. You look at their points per game with the THS loss, still just giving up 11 points per game and scoring 33.2 points per game. And without that game included, they're scoring 39.8 points per game and giving up just 3.4 points per game. So that's a strong statement to make. This is a very talented physical team on both sides of the football. They want to come out, set the tone with the run game, set the tone up front on the offensive line, and then rely on their defense to keep it a low-scoring battle and eventually that offense to wear down their defensive opponents. And that's what they tend to rely on. It helps them pull away in the second half of games. Briarwood, a very similar football team, though. You look at what Briarwood likes to do. They like to set the tone in the trenches and then come out and punch you in the mouth in the second half. That's why this game was so low scoring last year. It's why it was a tight battle a season ago. I expect it to be very similar this year. These are two teams. They know what's at stake in this game. They're looking to stay undefeated in region play. Likely the winner of this one going to have the best chance to win the region championship. So they know what's at stake in this game. You're going to get the best performances from both of these teams. They're going to be studying extra hard in the film room. They're going to be working extra hard at practice this week. They're going to have their focus honed in 100% on this matchup, and they're going to put all outside distractions away for the week and be ready to go in this battle. Now, one key, Mountain Brook has had a bye week. Coming off that 51-0 loss to Thompson, Mountain Brook has had a chance, extra time to prepare for this game, extra time to rest and get ready and healthy for this game. Will that make a difference? That could be a huge key, as Briarwood, they played last Friday and have a short week for a Thursday night game, whereas Mountain Brook has had an extra week of preparation. So at the end of the day, that could make a huge difference. But Briarwood just been so consistent on the offensive side of the ball, even against some of the best opponents in the state. The defense has been there this year. The offense has played well. They're scoring 39.3 points per game, giving up just 17 points per game so far this season, and they've scored 38 or more in all but last week's 28-7 win against Shades Valley, in which the defense bounced back and played one of its best games of the season. At the end of the night, I do think the key difference is going to be what Briarwood can put out there on the offensive side of the ball, but they're going to have Ethan Anderson, Jay Butler, some of those other guys at receiver step up this week, because Christopher Vezina is going to be there. He's going to be ready. He can make the throws. It's all about those receivers getting open, catching the ball, and taking advantage of their quarterback and what he can do. Vezina also can run with the football, but you don't want him to have to do that the entire night against a physical defense like this, because that's going to wear him down. And in addition to all that, the offensive line, they've improved. They've played well all year, and they've been a big key as to why this Briarwood offense has had so much success. If they come out, if they play well on that side of the football, you're going to be looking at a Briarwood team that's sitting at 8-0 at the end of this Thursday night with a huge win, their biggest win of the season. So I do think a lot of Briarwood's presence relies on what they can do offensively. I think both of these defenses are going to play well. So having that extra oomph on the offensive side, a quarterback that can make some late plays in the game, I think that could be what makes the difference. I do think this is going to be a tight game. It could be 10 points or less yet again this season, and I do think it could go either way. So it's going to be a lot of fun if you get the opportunity. Make sure you get out there to Mountain Brook this Thursday night for arguably one of the best games of the season, a top 5 battle between these two teams that's going to take place. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be there covering that one. Can't wait to see how it unfolds. So now we're going to go down classification by classification, talk about all of the other matchups that we have coming up this Thursday night and Friday night. Still 2 Thursday night games to talk about that we'll get to here shortly. Pelham will be traveling, hitting the road Thursday night. And then you've also got Helena and Caledonia playing each other this Thursday night. So we're going to get to those, but we're going to talk about the other games in 7A before we jump down to the 6A classification, and that's going to start with the Thompson Warriors, who just continue to roll. It almost seems unfair at this point what they've been able to do so far this season. Still a top 5 team in the country, still the unanimous number 1 in Class 7A as they sit undefeated right now through their first 7 games of the season, and they've just played dominant on both sides of the ball. There's no way around it at this point. They're coming off a 49-7 win against Vestavia Hills last week, and they have yet to give up more than 1 touchdown, or they've only given up 2 touchdowns this entire season, no more than 1 in a game, as they gave up 1 last week to Vestavia Hills, gave up 1 to Hewitt-Trussville, and they haven't given up double digits yet on the defensive side in any game so far this season. They've got 4 shutouts. They've given up 9 to Hewitt-Trussville, and they've given up 7 to Vestavia Hills. So defense playing lights out at this point in the year, and there's no way around that. 2.7 points per game is all that they're giving up on that side of the ball. You look at what the offense is doing, and it's arguably even more impressive. They're averaging 51.3 points per game. They've scored 42 or more in every game, 49 or more in all but that Hewitt-Trussville game that they won 42-9. So this team playing dominant on both sides of the ball last week. Honestly, in my opinion, not the biggest margin of victory that they've had this year, but to me, it seemed like the defense, even though they gave up 7 points, played one of its best games of the season. In that one, you had Peter Woods come out. He was all over the field, had a pick 6 off of an official, deflected off of him. He caught it, ran it in for a touchdown, recovered a fumble, had a couple of sacks in that game. Peter Woods was everywhere. Jeremiah Alexander, Jax Van Zant, others stepping up and playing well on the defensive side. And then you look at what the offense continues to do. Connor Harrell, Ryan Pepins, both of those guys set historic marks in their career last Friday night and continue to be leaders on the offensive side. And that's just 2 guys on an offense that seemingly every position, every player out there at any given moment can go to the house for a touchdown. So now they get Gadsden City this week. Expect another strong performance from Thompson. This is an improved Gadsden City team. If you look at where they were last year, 3-4 at this point a season ago. This year, they're sitting at 5-2, and they're playing pretty good defense. They're only giving up 17.6 points per game, and they're scoring 22.7 points per game. The offense struggling a little bit at times, but the defense has drastically improved from what they were last year. I do think that this game could be one of those sneaky games that's closer than people expect, but not nearly close enough to give Gadsden City a chance. You look at their other opponents that they've played where they've lost games. They lost to Oak Mountain 17-7. Well, Thompson's offense is a whole lot better than what we've seen from Oak Mountain on a points per game stand base there. And then Hoover, they lose that one 44-17, and Thompson's offense at least as good as what we've seen from Hoover this year, and we know that their defense is arguably better than both of those teams. They haven't played. Thompson has yet to play Oak Mountain and Hoover. Those games still ahead, so you can't get caught looking ahead to those games. Those are going to be top 10 opponents for the Warriors as well. But at the end of the day, Thompson, we think, at least as good, if not better, than both of those teams, considering where they stand in the country and what we've seen on a weekly basis. So you got to feel like this offense is going to continue to roll as long as they stay focused on each week and each game individually. Don't get caught up looking ahead, thinking about state championships or playoffs. This is a big week for the Warriors to continue to roll. It is homecoming week, so that could lead to a little bit of distraction as well. But knowing head coach Mark Freeman, knowing the business-like atmosphere that this team has every week, I expect them to roll to another big victory. They should be sitting at 8-0 at the end of Friday night. Just continue to set historic pace to this season as they look to put together another remarkable season here there at Thompson High School. Well, the Oak Mountain Eagles, they continued to impress last week in a Thursday night game against the Spain Park Jaguars. They win that one 35-7. The defense just continues to play lights-out football this year. It's been one of the most underrated defenses, I think, in the state so far this season. They held Hoover to just 28 points, lost that game 28-21 in a tight battle, but they make such great adjustments at the half, and that's been key throughout the season. This week they came out and started strong. So far this season, they've gotten off to some slow starts, particularly on the offensive side of the football. This last week, however, they came out, they played very strong on the offensive side and the defensive side, go on to beat Spain Park 35-7. Evan Smith, he accounted for all 5 touchdowns in that game, a couple passing, some on the ground as well. So he continues to be a leader on the offensive side of the football. Now they get Tuscaloosa County, and you got to be careful in a game like this because what's coming up for Oak Mountain, they've got some big games the rest of the way. Hewitt-Trussville and Thompson to close out region play this year. They're hoping to at least upset one of those teams and try to get that 3 seed going into the playoffs this year. So big games ahead, but you can't get distracted by that and look past what you have against Tuscaloosa County this Friday night. It's another big night for the Eagles to continue to prove who they are as a team this year and gain some momentum as they move forward throughout the rest of the season, try to get a high playoff seed, try to make some more noise in the postseason like they did a year ago. So don't let this game slip by you because Tuscaloosa County is a team that could be sitting in the waiting, ready to pull off an upset for any team that's not prepared and focused solely on them. That said, this is a Tuscaloosa County team that's 1-5 on the season so far, and they've lost 5 consecutive games over their last 5 as well. It's an offense that's scoring just 15.3 points per game, giving up 40 points per game so far this year. I think you're going to see an Oak Mountain team that continues to be out to prove a point. Tyler Crane, their new head coach this year, is a guy that really wants to turn this program into a state championship contender, and he knows that each week takes your full focus. He is a very serious head coach. He has fun with them, but you get that sense. They're not going to look ahead to anything. They're going to be ready for this matchup on Friday night on their home field, and I think you're going to see a big performance from the offense, possibly their best performance of the year, because what we saw last week, we've started to see them kind of grow together. Evan Smith is their guy. He is going to be the leader on the offensive side of the football each week, but you're starting to see others step up, make catches, stuff they haven't had to do in the past in their option style attack, and this year they're starting to step up, make big plays around Smith. Other guys are starting to become key on that offense. I think that's going to be key this Friday. And then you've got a defense that's just playing such great football so far this year. This is an Oak Mountain defense. I don't think people realize how good they've been. They're giving up just 12.5 points per game, and they've played some pretty dadgum good teams so far this year as well. So you've got the defense playing well. The offense should come out and have one of their best nights of the season. I think that leads itself to another big win for Oak Mountain this Friday night as they set the stage for a big couple weeks coming up. It's another tough test for the Spain Park Jaguars. This Friday they take on crosstown rival Hoover on their home field Friday night in this big rivalry battle, a game that traditionally has been a lot of fun to watch between these two teams because of the rivalry atmosphere that is there. But right now you've got the number 2 Buccaneers. They're sitting at 7-0, and you've got the Spain Park Jaguars. They enter off 5 consecutive losses, sitting at 1-5 on the season. So it's looking like it's going to be a one-sided matchup. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about Evan Smallwood. I've been so impressed by how he handles himself on the football field. This is an offense that struggled this year so far, and they're just not what they've been in years past because of the style change, because of the personnel that they've had. They just haven't had as many playmakers out there around. They've got a lot of young guys, a lot of guys new to the team as far as to the varsity level, and then just changing up what they've done this year just haven't been what they've been in years past. But we know one thing. We know Evan Smallwood is a guy that goes out there and plays physical. He's going to give it his all on every play, and he's likely going to get hit on every play, but he bounces right back up, and he gets the ball in his hands on that very next play, and he's ready to go. Well, last Thursday night against Oak Mountain, took a scary moment there against the Eagles as he goes down, had to be taken off on a stretcher. eventually was taken to Children's Hospital, but he ended up walking out with only concussion-like symptoms. So just a guy that I've been so impressed. It was the Thompson game that he really stood out to me this year, going up against some of the best defensive linemen in the country, guys that are likely going to be playing at Alabama or other places in the SEC in the next year or two, and he was running right at those guys and getting up after every single play. And that was so impressive to me, and he's continued to do that week in and week out. So to see that he was okay, he's a very physical guy. He's a guy that is, in my opinion, one of the toughest players in the state for what he's been able to do this year. He knows what's expected of him, and he goes out there and he does it. And, you know, Spain Park's offense has not been as talented this year from a points per game stand base, but this is a group of guys that goes out there and gives it their all. Even though they've struggled, they still go out there and they're not scared of the moment. So kudos to Evan Smallwood. I wanted to give him a shout out and talk about how talented he's been this year and this group of offensive players that have yet to give up on their season. They're going to buy in together. They're going to be ready for this game. It's a rivalry battle, and I think that's going to lead to a lot of excitement there. We've seen Spain Park at times. You look at the game against Hewitt-Trussville, was tied late in that game in the third quarter, 17-17. They go on to lose that one. They've been in some other games this year at the half as well. So this is a team I think you're going to get every ounce of energy they have left. They're going to pour into this game, hoping to pull off one of the biggest upsets of the season. They're going to buy in together and be ready to go. But this is a Hoover team that's been so talented so far this year. They're scoring 35.5 points per game, giving up just 13 points per game. Their defense, I think, is going to cause more problems. We don't know if Smallwood's going to play because of the concussion protocol, if he'll be ready to go or not on Friday night in this game. And you look at that Hoover defense, they're going to be ready to take advantage. They're going to be loaded up as a physical group that is playing so well so far this season. You know, Spain Park, they've scored 17 or less in 4 of 6 so far this year, and the defense has given up 35 or more in 4 of 6. So at the end of the night, Hoover's the better team. You got to expect them to win, but I don't think you're going to see any quit in Spain Park. I think you're going to see them come out and fight, which could lead to them having a chance at the upset there in the second half. It should be a lot of fun to watch unfold either way. It's a fun rivalry battle each and every year of that we get to see it. I expect it to be the same case this year. Well, this is a huge Thursday night battle between Helena and Calera, going to take place at Helena High School this Thursday, and we've got a lot to touch on in this game, so we're going to try to keep it as brief as we possibly can. But you look at this Calera football team and how impressive they've been under first-year head coach Jason Hamlin. This is a team going back to 2017 was the last time that they won more than one head-to-head game in a single season. They jumped up to the 6A classification in 2018 and have yet to win more than one game in a season since doing so. And this year, they've not only won more than one, they're now sitting at 4-2 on the season. They've won 4 games this year and are 2 games above 500. That's remarkable considering where this program has been the last few years. They've had a lot of young talent really waiting to emerge, and it finally seems to be doing just that. You've got an offense led by Preston Stokes at the quarterback position, his first year as a starter, who is taking advantage of the talent around him. Kobe Prentice, an Alabama commit at wide receiver, and seemingly 100 yards or more every game with a touchdown. And then you've got Braylon Farrington, who's stepped up and been big this year as well, almost matched exactly what Kobe Prentice has done, seemingly 100 or more every game and at least a touchdown in every game. So those two at receiver, taking advantage of a strong quarterback that stepped up making plays. Chris Carton, Daniel Carmona, at the running back position. Both of those guys, Cotton came back last week after an injury and is starting to rebound and get ready to go again. And then you look at Carmona, who stepped in while he was out and played well. This is an offense that's playing extremely well to this point in the season. And then you look at the Helena Huskies. They're sitting at 7-0 and atop the region standings, 4-0 in region play. They're coming off 3 emotional wins, though. They've won 3 tight football games in a row. You look at what they did a few weeks ago against Pelham. They win that one by 3 points. They beat McAdory by 6 2 weeks ago in double overtime, and they trailed Chilton County 27-13 at the half last week, a team that they're much better than from a personnel standpoint. Struggled early in that game, came back. They win that one 48-40 in the final minutes. Chilton County had a chance to tie that game late, which likely would have forced overtime. They decided to go for 2 instead, gave it back to Helena. Helena scored one more touchdown to put that one away for a 48-0 win. So it's been 3 really roller coaster rides in a row for the Helena Huskies, an emotional stretch. So how do they bounce back from that and get ready to go for a team that is better than what they faced last week when they almost lost to Chilton County? Calera beat Chilton County 21-0 a few weeks ago. So you've got 2 teams that playing great football right now. Calera's won a couple in a row. Helena's sitting at 7-0. How does Helena bounce back from those emotional games? And I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys this week. You look at the Huskies and where they were the last 3 weeks, specifically last week in that game after that contest and a tight win against Chilton County. Head coach Richie Busby talked about how he knew his team was better than that and how his play, he was kind of disappointed in their performance in that game. Throughout homecoming week, they let that get to their heads, didn't really focus enough on the game. I think that's big. I think this week they're going to have 100% focus coming off of that game, a game they won, kind of like the Alabama-Florida game a few weeks ago in college football where Alabama beat Florida, didn't feel like they played their best football game. There was no celebrations going on, and we saw what happened this past Saturday against Ole Miss. They come out against a team that people expected to be a close battle, and they put them in the rear view. Alabama won that one going away. I kind of expect to see a Helena team that comes out this Thursday and does some similar stuff. They're going to be completely focused this week in practice. They're going to be ready to roll come Thursday night, but Calera is not going to back down. You look at an offense that's playing well, going up against a defense in Helena that should be one of their strong suits each and every week, but you look at the last few weeks and Helena's defense has struggled. They've given up 30 or more each and every week the last 3 weeks, and you've got a Calera offense playing as well as they're playing right now. That Helena defense the last 3 weeks giving up 34, 35, and 40 in that span. Calera, they're scoring 27.7 points per game, but they're playing their best football of the year so far on the offensive side, and their defense has been a little bit underrated, I think. They're giving up just 19.7 points per game, coming off a couple of big performances in a row. Gave up just 3 last week in a big win, and then you look at what they did a few weeks ago, shutting out Chilton County. This defense, 2 of their last 3 performances have given up 3 or less, and 3 in a row have given up 21 or less. They're playing great on the defensive side of the football. The offense doing exactly what it needs to. I think that that's going to be key. I do think they're not going to be scared of this battle whatsoever. That said, you've got a Helena team, I think, that's out to prove a point now. They're kind of being second-guessed now by some people with what they showed last week. I think you're going to see a defense, the way they've played the last 3 weeks, come out and try to prove a point that they are still one of the best defenses in the 6A classification. Then I think you're going to – you look at the offense. Jordan Washington's just been ridiculous the last several weeks, seemingly over 200 yards every week, coming off a 200 close to 300-yard rushing performance last Friday with 6 touchdowns in that game. I think he's going to be a key in this game. The way that he has played on the offensive side of the football so far this season just improved. Started a little slow early in the year as he kind of worked in, still just a sophomore there at Helena, and he's really turned into a feature back, one of the best backs in the state on the offensive side. And then you look at what this defense can do. I think that this is a hungry team. I think you're going to see Calera give them a challenge as a very talented football team. But at the end of the night, I think Helena eventually has enough to get over the hump. I think they're out to prove a point. I think that's what makes the difference in what should be a very, very exciting football game on Thursday night. Regardless of what happens for Calera, they've got some big opportunities ahead. This is a team that's very much in the thick of the playoff hunt this year. I think they can get to the postseason, especially after last week's big win. They're going to come out, they're going to show some fight in this game and show that they're a team ready to make a run in the 6A playoffs this year. But at the end of the night, Helena's still a state championship contender this year from what we've seen. Still undefeated. Until somebody knocks them off, they've got to be the favorites each and every week. Well, that takes us to our final Thursday night game of the week, our third of 3 Thursday night games. Pelham will be traveling to Benjamin Russell this Thursday, and coming off arguably their best performance of the season. The Pelham Panthers 41-14 against Wetumpka, a team that on paper, those two teams very close in what we expected. I expected a tight battle in that game, but Pelham's defense came out to prove a point. They forced several turnovers, and then you had the offense. Gabe Gamble, Will Langford stepped up. Still been inconsistent at times, but they made some big-time plays, and they capitalized on the defense, giving them the football back. They put up 41 points in a very impressive 41-14 win against Wetumpka. And that's the kind of football team that Pelham is. That's the team the last couple of weeks lose those very heartbreaking games to Helena and then to Chelsea, both by 3 points. We knew that this team coming into the year was capable not only of winning those two games, but doing what they did last week against Wetumpka, putting up 41 and only giving up 14. This is a talented football team that across the board returned most of their starters on both sides of the ball. Now, behind that, the depth has been something that's been key. The defensive side, not very deep this year, but that front line, that group of starters this year, been playing football together for a while. They're a group that's extremely close, and they played like it in that 41-14 win against Wetumpka, and that showed what's possible. That showed what this team can do, what they can accomplish, and that likely will be what gives them home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs as they battle for that one of those top 2 seeds in this region. So that was a big win. Now they get a 1-5 Benjamin Russell team this Thursday night on the road, and Benjamin Russell is coming off a bye week. So the Panthers, they need to be ready for this road test. You can't let that big bounce-back win last week affect you going into this week. You've got to shift your focus quickly because not only do you have a short week, but Benjamin Russell has had extra time to prepare, extra time to watch that film and get ready for this game. So they're going to be ready to go. They're going to know what to expect from Pelham. It's a matter of can they match up with them from a personnel standpoint. And you look at Benjamin Russell, they're only scoring 17.5 points per game while the defense is giving up 31.3 points per game. Pelham, they've been a pretty consistent average team on both sides of the football. They're scoring 27.6 and giving up 21.7. So that's about 10 to 11 points per game better on both sides of the ball against a very difficult football schedule so far this season. So you see that from Pelham, and you got to think that they're going to have a slight edge in this football game. I know it's a 1-5 Benjamin Russell team, but you can't look past anybody in your region. It's a big game. It's a game that every week from here on out determines your success. They win this one, they will most likely get the 2 seed. I'll have to do some research into that, but I think if they win this one, they do get the 2 seed in that region. So a big night for the Pelham Panthers this Thursday night against Benjamin Russell. Should be a game if they can build off the confidence that we saw last week, that defense coming out, hounding the football, forcing turnovers, the offense capitalizing, Will Langford playing some of his best football. Gabe Gamble has really hit a stretch where he's playing his best football of the year. This is a team that can be extremely successful and make a run this year if they can continue to play like what we saw last week, and they need to do just that on Thursday against Benjamin Russell. Seems like we continuously are talking about big games on this week's show, and the Chelsea Hornets are going to have just that as well as they take on Huffman on the road this week. And this is a big battle for the Hornets, big battle for both teams, but especially for Chelsea, who is still battling for a playoff spot this season, going up against a physical and athletic Huffman group this week. You look at Chelsea's losses. They started 0-4, but those 4 losses came to teams with a combined 2 losses so far this year. They lose to Oak Mountain, Helena, Briarwood, and Homewood. All of those teams extremely talented. You look at Helena and Briarwood, obviously still unbeaten so far this year. Oak Mountain and Homewood only 1 loss each this year as well. So you look at that, and Chelsea had a chance to win 3 of those. They were tied with Oak Mountain at the half to start the season before a slow start to the third quarter, and then had a chance each of the next 3 weeks to win those games, including almost upsetting Briarwood. Again, they led 35-21 almost midway through the fourth quarter and ended up losing that one in overtime, 42-35. So you look at that. This Chelsea team is very talented. The offense has played well. each week of the season and has gotten better as the season has gone along. Defense in a similar situation. They've kind of improved each week of the season, and that's going to be key. The defense is going to have to continue to get better for this team to get where they want to get this season. The offense, though, I think is what can make a difference in a game like this. You're looking at a Huffman team that has struggled so far this season. They did win their opener 21-19 against 1-5 Benjamin Russell, but that's been their only win of the season. Since then, the Vikings have lost 6 straight and given up 41 or more in each of those games. And in their last 5 of those 6 that they've lost, they have scored 20 or less. So you look at that, the offense of Chelsea, I think, is the big key. I do think their defense could give up some points to Huffman. I do think Huffman could get around the 20-point mark, but when you're a defense that's giving up 40 points in your last 6 games and you're taking on a Chelsea offense led by Hayden Garrison coming off a 5-touchdown performance through the air last week, you've got guys like Cooper Griffin, Thomas Simpson, Matt Gray really stepping up at the running back position, others starting to separate themselves at receiver as well. This is an offense, as that offensive line has gotten better, the offense as a whole has continued to get better because it gives them time to get the ball in the hands of those playmakers at the skill positions there. I think that that's going to be key this week. I think Chelsea's going to have arguably their best offensive performance of the year in this matchup against Huffman. The defense can play well. That builds even more confidence going into the rest of the season. But I think nonetheless, I think the offense is something that they're playing so well right now. I think that's going to be a huge key in lifting them to victory, a 3rd win in a row after that 0-4 start, which would really go a long way. A region win would go a tremendously long way in helping this team in their playoff chances if they win this game. That'll set up a big one coming up the next week as they battle down the stretch. This Chelsea team right in the thick of things right now. That offense, I think, continues to carry them. What a big, big win for the Shelby County Wildcats last week against Central Tuscaloosa. Led that game 8-6 early, ended up falling behind 14-8 later in the game. They trailed 14-8 all the way down to about 4 minutes left. Then they get a scoop and score fumble, so they didn't even have the ball. We're still trailing with about 4 minutes left. Make a huge play defensively with the scoop and score, take the lead back at 15-8, and then punch one more in from about a yard out with 50 seconds to play to put a cap on a 22-14 victory against the Falcons. And that win, that not only could go a long way in helping them make the playoffs, but that one could go a long way in helping them get the 2 seed and home field advantage in the playoffs this year. This is a team you look at going into last year. They hadn't made the playoffs since 2009. They punched that ticket a year ago for the first time since as a 4 seed, and now a year later, already a chance to be a number 2 seed and under first-year head coach and graduate of Shelby County High School, Zeb Ellison. So an impressive season so far and an impressive effort last week on the road as they gutted out that win. And now another big one against Marbury this week. Not only can they clinch a playoff spot with this win, but they'll likely lock up the 2 seed as the only game after this left for the Wildcats is a winless Jemison team that they should be able to beat. Obviously, we'll need to be focused for that one as well, but you got to start with this one. You win this one, a very good chance to get that 2 seed and home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. And this is a good Marbury team. They've been average on both sides of the ball, but the defense has played particularly well so far this season. The offense scoring 18.3 points per game, so not going to beat you down on the offensive side of the football, which I think is going to be key in keeping this game close. But the defense for Marbury is giving up just 18.7 points per game, so playing extremely well on that side of the football. They're 3-4 overall this year. You look at Shelby County, they've obviously played well, now 3-3, 3-1 in region play. The offense, however, they've struggled. They're scoring just 16.5 points per game. The defense, they've gotten better each and every week. They're giving up just 26.5 points per game, and I think that's the key. Going up against a struggling offense, I think you're going to see a defensive battle between both of these teams. That the defense has really played well for both at times this season. And you look at similar opponents so far this year. Both teams beat Montevallo by 17 points this year. You look at Shelby County against Sipsey Valley. They won that game by 11, 33-22. Marbury, they only beat Sipsey Valley by 3, 10-7. Shelby County, they beat Central Tuscaloosa 22-14, so an 8-point game there. Marbury, they lost to Central Tuscaloosa 25-7. So even if Shelby County would have lost that game to Central, they still would have been closer than what Marbury was against Central. And then Shelby County, they beat Selma 11-8. Marbury lost to Selma 12-6. So there's been some similar battles, but what that tells me is that Shelby County should have the slight upper hand. If the offense can make just a couple of plays, better yet, if the defense can give them good opportunities like they did last week. This is a defense, I think, that's going to keep them in this game. It's up to the offense to make those late plays like they did a week ago, the defense to make some big plays late in the game and stay fresh. They can do that. You're going to be looking at a Shelby County team that clinches another playoff spot, and one that I think will end up being the 2 seed going into the playoffs out of this region. So a big night for the Wildcats yet again. I think they pull off another big win here against Marbury in what should be a fascinating game. I think this is going to be a fun defensive battle, typical slugfest of football here between these two. One, if you're a Shelby County fan, you're not going to want to miss the Wildcats have another chance to get back into the postseason this year. Well, it wasn't easy, but for the second year in a row, Montevallo takes down West Blockton in a crucial win by 1 point. And last year it lifted them into the playoffs. This year likely going to do the same thing, give them a chance to battle for the 3 seed there in that region. So a big, big win for the Bulldogs last week against West Blockton. Kyle Cottingham stepped up, made some big plays. He's starting to play his best football of the season, was injured early in the year, didn't really have a chance to grow and form into the quarterback that we wanted him to be early in the year as his first year as a starter at that position. But now that he's back from injury, he's starting to gain experience. In the last couple of weeks in particular, we've seen him play some great football at the quarterback position, and that's what they need. They need that 1-2 punch because the other part of that duo is Joseph Anderson, who is playing great football this year. Another big performance last week against West Blockton. We'll talk about those guys at the end of the show in our SCR Stars of the Week segment, but they need to continue to play well to give this team a chance to make a deep postseason run. I think you're going to see them do it again this week. This is a Montevallo team playing their best football of the year. Defense didn't play their best performance last week against West Blockton, giving up 36 in that game, but this is a team in Montevallo that's played well on the defensive side. They've been improved on that side of the ball this year compared to last year, and the offense starting to gain traction and show what it's capable of as well. You look at Montevallo right now and the way they're playing, 2-2 in region play, 4-2 overall on the season, as they've now hit a stretch where they're playing some of their best football of the season. This week they get 0-6 Sumter Central, a team that has yet to score a point this season. They forfeited their first 2 games of the season, and they've been outscored 175-0 in their 4 head-to-head games since then. They've given up 39 or more in those 4 losses as well. Obviously have not scored a point yet this season. With an improved Montevallo defense, I don't see them giving up a ton of points to a team that hasn't scored yet this year. And then you look at a Montevallo offense that's starting to play its best football of the year, 49 and 37 points in their last 2 games. I think you're going to see the offense roll, scoring 30 points per game, defense giving up 25 points per game. Expect this offense, led by Joseph Anderson and Kyle Cottingham, to continue to roll this week against a winless team. Look at Montevallo to get another victory and for that defense to make a statement and get some confidence as well. Well, their toughest opponent is now behind them. Vincent, they lose 47-6 last week to Lynette, top 5 team there in the 2A classification. And Vincent, they took the 6-0 lead early in that game, but it was all Lynette from there. They win that one with 47 unanswered, 47-6 the final score. That game now behind them, though, and this is a Vincent team that's got to put it behind them. They've got to move forward quickly and realize that they're more talented this year than they were last year and chase down a playoff spot, and that starts this week against Randolph County. This is a team in Vincent that's been drastically improved this year. Now they're taking on a Randolph team they lost to last year, and it kept them out of the playoffs. This year, Randolph County sitting at 1-5 going into this matchup, not as good as they were last year, and they've lost 5 consecutive games, so they don't have much momentum going into this contest either. So it's a big week for Vincent to believe in themselves and know that they are the better team and play like they are the better team. So they've got to come out with a sense of urgency and put up points early, take a lead going into the half, and then come out fresh and ready to roll in the second half as well. You look at Randolph County, they've scored 12 or less in all but 2 games this season, and the defense has given up 34 or more in every game so far this season. Last year, like I said, Vincent lost this game 56-38 a season ago, but Vincent improved. Randolph not playing as good this year. Vincent's got to come out and believe, like I've said, that they are the better team. They're scoring 31.2 points per game, and they've scored 35 or more in all but 2 so far this season. In the defense, they're giving up 25.8 points per game, and that includes the 47 that they gave up last week. So this is a defense that's the best it's been in several years. So this is a big one for Vincent, with games against BB Comer and Lafayette the weeks after this that will likely determine if they get a 3 seed, a 4 seed, a playoff spot at all. This is a huge game for the Yellow Jackets going into that stretch. They've got to win this one, and if they win this one, that likely gives them the belief, that they can win those last 2 region games against Lafayette and BB Comer that could really give them a huge momentum boost. I think this is a talented team. I think they show that against Randolph County. They continue to grow that belief heading into a key stretch of region play as they close it out here the next 3 weeks. So now we dive into the AISA before we get to our SCR Stars of the week. And you look at both Cornerstone and Coosa Valley. They take on each other last week in a county rivalry and region battle. Coosa Valley picks up the win 34-6, a big showing from the Rebels as they continue to impress, win their second game of the season under first-year head coach Vince DiLorenzo in his second stint leading the Rebels, first time since he led them to a state championship in 2010. And this team has played the biggest difference that you've seen from this team this year is the effort on the defensive side of the football. Give up just 6 to Cornerstone last week, and they're playing great on that side of the football this year. 19.8 points per game they've given up, playing some of the best teams in the AISA. Now a strong chance to make the playoffs and a strong chance to contend for a playoff run this year with the way that they're playing on that side of the ball. As we've seen the offense improve. As an offense is only scoring 14.5 points per game, but they put up 34, best performance of the season against Cornerstone. I expect that to continue to improve on the offensive side of the football. Now they get an Abbeville team this week that's 2-4 overall, 1-1 in region play so far this season. And I think this is a game that is huge for Coosa Valley as far as their postseason standing at the end of the year. Abbeville, they've scored 13 or less in 4 of 6 games this year. They beat Cornerstone 35-14, so a similar showing there against the Chargers. I expect Coosa Valley's defense to be a huge reason that they're in this game, and I think it ultimately can be what gives them the edge as this offense continues to improve and grow so far this season. I think the defense keeps them in it. I think the offense can make some plays late to pick up a big win against Abbeville. Cornerstone, they will host Springwood this Friday night. Cornerstone coming off that 34-6 loss to Coosa Valley, but this is a Springwood team that's 0-6, scoring just 4.7 points per game, giving up 45.2 points per game. Cornerstone, they're 2-5 now, but they're scoring 15.3 and giving up just 29 points per game so far this season. This should be a win for the Chargers, a big bounce-back victory for them as they look to try to gain some steam here late in the season. Well, that takes us to our SCR Stars of the Week segment as the sun has come out here on a Monday morning at Briarwood Christian School. Been a rainy morning so far this morning on a Monday, but it's going to be rainy the next few days, and then Thursday night going to be looks like perfect weather as we kick off those 3 games, and then same for Friday. So going to be a rainy few days, but then the sun's going to start shining just like as we start talking about our SCR Stars. It's going to start shining as we get football back underway this week. But mentioning some of these names, they had big performances in big games this past week, and I expect that to be the case as we move forward as well. And you look at the Oak Mountain Eagles, it seemed to be a race between who could have more interceptions and who could have more touchdowns when you talk about Evan Smith and Corbett Grundhofer. But you look at Smith. This is a kid that's been unbelievable for 4 years now, continuing a strong final season there for the Eagles. He went 9 of 12, 80 yards through the air and a touchdown. Also ran for 189 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground there to lead Oak Mountain to a 35-7 win against rival Spain Park. He accounted for all 5 touchdowns in that game. Corbett Grundhofer, the strong linebacker / defensive back there for the Eagles. He's all over the field, it seems like, every week, and he had 3 interceptions for the defense to help make a difference in that win and give the offense some good field position to work with. So a big night for him as Oak Mountain pulls away in that win. The Thompson Warriors, they continue to roll as well on both sides of the ball. You start on the offensive side, Connor Harrell and Ryan Pepins, both big nights. Harrell, he had another 15 for 24 performance, 216 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, also ran for 40 yards and an additional touchdown as well. And then you look at Pepins. He's had a great career there, 2 years now that he's been playing lights out. One of his best performances of the season this year so far, 4 receptions, 145 yards, and a touchdown to lead the Warriors in that game against Vestavia Hills. A 49-7 win as the offense continued to roll. On the defensive side, you look at Peter Woods in that game, a monster night for him. 5.5 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and an interception returned to the end zone off an official, and then he also had a big fumble recovery there as well. So a big night there for Peter Woods as he continues to have a strong junior campaign there for the Warriors. Jordan Washington, overall player of the week, no doubt about it. The kid was a monster. He's the reason that Helena won that game against Chilton County. 21 carries, 279 yards on the ground with 6 touchdowns. Chilton County knew what was coming, and they still couldn't stop him. Unbelievable showing for him as he put the team on his back and ran them to a victory, 48-40, in that comeback against Chilton County. He's done that seemingly every week the last 3 to 4 weeks. He's getting better and better. If he stays healthy, this team is going to be dangerous because he's going to be so tough to stop. And once you go up on him, they're definitely working on ways to open up the play action. J.C. Sibley and Mac Turner still there, ready to take advantage when defenses do try to hone in and shut him down. But just an unbelievable night for Washington at the running back position in that win for Helena. The Calera Eagles, they continue to roll on the offensive side. The big 3, Preston Stokes, Kobe Prentice, and Braylon Farrington all step up again. Stokes, he went 17 of 26, 217 yards, and 3 touchdowns through the air. Then you look at Prentice, 9 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown receiving. And Farrington right there with him, 5 catches, 104 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Been so impressed with him. All the attention on Prentice, the Alabama commit, who has lived up to the hype, but then you have that second guy that makes you a complete team on the offensive side. He stepped up, Farrington has, and has had a special year so far for the Eagles. On the defensive side, Michael Banks also playing some great football this year. 12 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and broke up 2 passes in that game and win for the Eagles. So a big night for him on the defensive side. You look at the Briarwood Lions, and Christopher Vizina just continues to impress. Beyond that, he's having guys step up. A different guy, it seems like, every week at the receiver position, but Ethan Anderson really starting to emerge as one of his go-to targets. Vizina, 17 of 19, 232 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. And then you look at what he did on the ground, 15 carries, 96 yards, and 2 additional touchdowns on the ground. one of the best games he's had this year. Very accurate with the football, put it exactly where it needed to be. And that's why these receivers need to step up, because he is a talented passer. Although he can take off with his legs, his arm is drastically improved the last few years, and now playing the best he has throwing the football. These receivers step up. That's going to help this Briarwood team become not only a region championship contender, but a state championship contender. And guys like Ethan Anderson have to keep doing it. He had a huge game, 8 catches, 136 yards, and 2 touchdowns in that 28-7 win against Shades Valley. Look for him and others to step up, especially if Luke Reevels is unable to go against Briarwood this week or any other game the rest of the season. For the Chelsea Hornets, Hayden Garrison continuing to play some great football this year. Been one of the highlights at the quarterback position in the county so far at Chelsea. 9 of 15, 250 yards, and all 5 touchdowns came from his arm in that win against Woodlawn last Thursday. A strong performance for the Chelsea Hornets. I said all 5. I'm sorry. One of those actually came from another SCR star, and that was Matt Gray, who had a long touchdown run for the Hornets. 6 carries, 87 yards, and a touchdown in that win. So he accounted for 1. Hayden Garrison accounted for the other 5 with his arm. And then you look at Thomas Simpson, 3 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown as well. So a strong showing from Chelsea on the offensive side in that game. For the Pelham Panthers, Will Langford and Gabe Gamble both stepped up this past Friday in a big win. Langford, 8 of 16, 199 yards through the air with a touchdown. Also ran for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns on 13 carries. Gabe Gamble, one of his better games of the year, 22 carries, 141 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that dynamic duo starting to play well. If you can have guys like Jake Fox, Darius Copeland, and Christian Pritchett step up and make big plays as well. Copeland had close to 80 yards in this game, about 40 rushing and 40 through the air receiving as well. So if those guys step up, this Pelham offense continues to be a dangerous one to prepare for. Told you we would talk about both Montevallo players earlier in the show. We're going to do that right now. Kyle Cottingham and Joseph Anderson, both big games. Cottingham, 8 of 11, 113 yards and a touchdown passing. Also ran for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns on 13 carries. His best game of the year. He continues to get more and more confident at the quarterback position, learning what the reads are, learning about the position, and learning the offense as a whole. So playing some great football there now. And he's building off of what Joseph Anderson's been able to do. He had 26 carries, 180 yards, and 3 touchdowns there for the Bulldogs in that win last Friday. A 1-point victory. They needed every yard and touchdown that those guys got. So big performances from both Kyle Cottingham and Joseph Anderson on the offensive side. On the defensive side, Jamion Prentice and Cole Dennis played well. Also, Prentice, 13 tackles. Cole Dennis, 9 tackles and 1 sack, as those players made big plays down the stretch in a 1-point victory as well. So a loaded group of guys there. My voice is already starting to dry up on me here as we had several big performances last week. And as the games get more and more important, I expect more big playmakers to step up and make themselves known. And that's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School Football Show. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it and can't wait to see what unfolds this week. Like we've said, 3 games on Thursday night. Going to be a huge week. 2 big games there on Thursday as Helena hosts Calera. Briarwood travels to Mountain Brook. Big implications for the postseason and region championships there. Pelham also in a Thursday night game looking to continue their momentum swing against Benjamin Russell in a game that could play a factor in how far or how highly seeded the Panthers are at the end of the year. And then a busy night on Friday night, as always. Going to be a lot of fun on Friday as well. We're going to see you at all these games this week. We're going to have our great coverage throughout both Thursday and Friday night. Can't wait to see how it all unfolds. But until then, I'm Alec Etheridge. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll see you on Thursday night and then again on Friday night for another exciting week of high school football right here in Shelby County.